And joining me now is Ehsan Monfared, an aviation lawyer as well as a pilot. And your practice actually specializes in aviation regulation, which includes drone regulation that will probably end up coming out in a little bit from Transport Canada. So let's wear your pilot hat, if you would, for a sec here. Let's talk about the dangers of a drone. What kind of dangers can a drone pose to an aircraft?
So aircraft are usually tested with birds, frozen birds and thawed birds, and they test to see how much the engines, for example, can ingest before it becomes critical and doesn't function. Drones don't have the same consistency, material consistency that you would with flesh, right? So there was a University of Dayton did an experiment, and they tried one of these DJI drones. It's about 2.1 pounds, and it created a huge hole in the front leading edge of the wing of a little single-engine aircraft. And those aircraft travel on landing about half the speed that your regular airliner would be coming in for landing. So it doesn't take much imagination to think about the kind of catastrophic damage that can have. And
you were talking about the DJI drones, which are one of the most common consumer drones. The drones that are in London right now, they're saying are fairly large. They're about 30 pounds, so these are fairly large drones.
Yeah, it's remarkable that anybody would think this is a good idea, especially around Christmas time, to have these things disrupt flights. They're saying it's not a terrorism incident, but nonetheless, I mean, this is a prank. It's a terrible one at best.
Have there been incidents around Pearson, around Billy Bishop, maybe, with drones, consumer drones?
Transport Canada, a year or so ago, they implemented some measures to try to reduce drones and people inadvertently taking up drones. This incident was a targeted one, but there was one incident in Quebec where a drone was being operated much higher than it should have ever been, and it actually collided with the aircraft as it was coming in for approach.
What kind of penalties could people face, drone operators face here in Canada, if they get too close to an aircraft?
Well, they could face criminal penalties. So aside from the regulatory penalties, which on an individual basis is about $5,000 per violation, you're also looking at potential jail time, potential criminality associated with it, because we're dealing with people's lives, not to mention, you know, the Christmas traveling season and the hundreds of thousands of passengers that have been impacted by these activities.
You know, the authorities in around Gatwick don't want to shoot this thing down because they think that's going to pose a danger. We know at Billy Bishop that they've used some jamming technology to infiltrate, I guess, the frequency of the drone and just have it crash in the water. Is that a possibility? Obviously, they're not able to do it in this case. Any indication as to why? Well,
I think they're worried about the collateral damage on the ground, especially when they're able to divert flights away from, then they don't have to actually run the risk of any loss of life whatsoever. And I don't know what the altitudes were that the drone was operating at. There could be more certainty, for example, around Billy Bishop if it's just an amateur that's just popping into controlled airspace, which, for the interest of all viewers, if you're near an airport, it starts from the ground. The moment that takes off from the ground, you're in controlled airspace and you're in violation of the laws, even if you don't get a ticket and nobody finds out about it.
So even if you're just hovering a little bit, that's illegal?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you a story. So a couple of years ago, my friends got me a drone for my birthday, and I have not operated outside of my house because I know this, and I've never been in a remote enough area that I can play around with it without running the risk of violating the laws and putting at risk the lives of people operating aircraft and traveling.
Looks like a fun toy, but it can obviously do a lot of damage if not used correctly. Thank you for coming in and sharing your expertise. Thank you.